A black teenager was laughed at during a will reading, until everyone realized she was the heir. From the moment Maya stepped into the lawyer's office, every eye judged her. 17 years old, dark skin, natural curls, and a plain dress. That was all it took for the wealthy Almeida family to decide she didn't belong. "Who let the maid in here?" sneered Victor Almeida, nephew of the late Eduardo Almeida, earning quiet chuckles from others. Maya stood still, her gaze locked on the empty chair in the center. Her Aunt Christina, covered in jewels and a designer gown, didn't even lower her voice. "Probably one of my brother's charity cases. Here to beg for money." Maya's chest tightened under the weight of their scorn, but she refused to show pain. She let her eyes wander over the walls lined with photos, awards, and certificates, proof of Eduardo Almeida's empire built over 60 years. "Looks like she's lost," muttered Ricardo, the eldest son who ran the businesses. "Someone should escort her out before Mr. Garcia arrives. This is embarrassing." No one noticed a faint smile on Maya's lips as the door opened. In walked Enrique Garcia, the family's lawyer of 30 years, holding a warm brown briefcase. His wrinkled face gave nothing away as he greeted the Almeidas one by one. Then his gaze fell on her. "Miss Maya," he said, motioning to the empty chair near his desk. "Please sit." The room froze. Victor nearly choked on his champagne. Christina's fingers dug into her purse. Ricardo adjusted his expensive tie and asked, "Garcia, do you even know this girl?" The lawyer gave a firm nod. "Of course. And you should too. Maya Oliveira, Dona Celeste's daughter. She has been helping her mother clean this house since she was 12. "The maid's daughter?" Christina spat. "Why is she here for a private family reading?" Maya sat down calmly, her back straight, her face serene, even as hostility filled the room. She had promised herself she would not cry, no matter what was said. Garcia carefully opened his briefcase. "We are gathered for the reading of Eduardo Almeida's will." He began. Eduardo had passed away 3 weeks earlier after a long fight with cancer. In the corner, Patricia, a niece too busy with her phone, snapped a secret photo of Maya and posted online. "Intruder at the will reading. Gold digger move even after the boss's death." The post quickly drew likes and mocking comments. Victor whispered to his cousins, "I bet Uncle left her a little charity. Maybe 10,000. Nothing serious." But Maya wasn't watching them. Her eyes were fixed on the lawyer's hands as he pulled out a sealed envelope. "Before we begin," Garcia said, "Eduardo left a video message." Ricardo rolled his eyes. Another one of Father's dramatics. "Let's get this over with." Ignoring him, Garcia pressed a button and a screen lit up. Eduardo Almeida's face appeared, frail but with a sharp glimmer in his eyes. His voice was weak but steady. "If you're watching this, I am gone," he said, "and I know you are eager to hear how I divided my estate. But first, I have a question. Can any of you tell me the name of Dona Celeste's daughter?" The room fell into uneasy silence. Ricardo frowned. Victor scratched his neck. Christina stared at her nails. "I thought so." Eduardo continued with a sad smile. "That girl has worked in this house for 5 years, helping her mother since she was 12. And not one of you, my own family, ever cared enough to learn her name." Maya swallowed hard as his tone grew firmer. "I saw how you treated her, and how you treated every employee, like they were invisible, disposable. That told me everything I needed to know about your character." The silence was suffocating. Patricia dropped her phone. Victor shifted uncomfortably. Ricardo leaned back in his chair. What none of them knew was that behind Maya's calm silence was a truth that would soon shake the entire room. A secret Eduardo had uncovered in his final months, one that would flip their world upside down. Eduardo's voice carried on through the video. "In my last months, I watched how you treated people. Nurses, drivers, cleaners. What I saw broke my heart. But then I noticed Maya. While you ignored her, I saw a young woman who worked by day, studied by night, cared for her sick mother, and still found time to read books from my library." Ricardo suddenly stood, his face red. "This is outrageous." "Garcia, this can't be legal." Ricardo snapped. The lawyer stayed calm. "Everything is in perfect legal order, Mr. Ricardo." On the screen, Eduardo gave a faint smile. "I know you're shocked, and I'm sure Ricardo is already questioning whether this is legal." Ricardo's face went pale. His father had predicted his reaction word for word. What you don't know, Eduardo continued, is that I spent the last 3 months talking with Maya. She would sit with me during her breaks and share her dream of studying law. Patricia shifted nervously, trying to erase the cruel post she had made earlier. Too late. It had already spread online. This is Maya Oliveira, Eduardo went on, daughter of Dona Celeste, who worked in our home for 15 years, even when Christina cut her salary while buying her Ford imported car. Christina's face burned with shame. Eduardo's voice hardened. And Maya is the same girl Ricardo humiliated, forcing her to scrub the floor on her knees after he spilled water on her documents she needed for her mother's urgent surgery. The video cut off. Garcia opened another envelope. There is one more video, but before that, I must read the key terms of the will. This is absurd. Victor shouted. A maid's daughter can't inherit the empire our family built for generations. Maya finally spoke, her voice steady. Your family built nothing, Mr. Victor. Eduardo started out selling fruit at the market. The only ones born into privilege are all of you. The room went silent. Garcia cleared his throat and began reading aloud. I, Eduardo Almeida, leave to Maya Oliveira 51% of the shares of Almeida Incorporated, my primary residence, all properties listed in Appendix A, and 20 million raised in investments. This is fraud. Ricardo yelled, his face twisted with rage. That girl manipulated a dying man. Garcia raised his hand for silence. There are conditions. Maya will only take full control at age 21. Until then, the company will be overseen by a board led by myself and Dr. Luisa Mendez. Luisa Mendez? Christina interrupted. The doctor? What does she have to do with this? As if on cue, the door opened. A poised black woman in an elegant suit walked in. Her eyes met Maya's, and she gave a warm smile. Dr. Mendez, Garcia explained, was more than Eduardo's doctor. She introduced Maya to him after witnessing how the girl cared for Dona Celeste in the hospital. This was after you fired her, Christina, when her mother fell ill. Dr. Luisa nodded. Celeste and I were classmates once, before life took us down different roads. When I found her in the hospital, I also saw what an extraordinary daughter she had. What no one realized was at this moment, when a maid's daughter was about to inherit an empire, had begun months earlier with a chance meeting in a hospital hallway. 3 months before, Maya had begged Ricardo for an advance to buy her mother's medicine. Not only did he refuse, he mocked her in front of his executives. I don't have time for employee problems. If you can't afford the treatment, maybe you should find another job. That same day, Dr. Luisa found Maya crying on the service stairs. After hearing her story, the doctor made a decision that would change everything. She introduced Maya to Eduardo Almeida. There's another video. Garcia announced, placing a flash drive into the player. Eduardo requested it be shown only if his will was contested. On the screen, Eduardo appeared weak but determined. If you are watching this, it means my family is disputing my choices. Let me be clear, I am of sound mind. I made these decisions after months of observation and recorded proof of your behavior. Maya did not manipulate me. In fact, she resisted my offer. It took much persuasion for her to accept. He looked into the camera. As for you, look in the mirror. You are not heirs because of merit, but by accident of birth. The screen lit up with damning clips. Ricardo shouting at staff. Christina firing Celeste. Victor mocking an elderly driver. Patricia making racist jokes. Eduardo had recorded everything. Each clip was like a slap across the room. The Almeida sat frozen, exposed. What makes this moment extraordinary, Dr. Luisa said gently, resting a hand on Maya's shoulder, is that Eduardo wasn't only leaving her wealth, he was giving her power, the power to change the system. The family didn't yet understand. Eduardo had found in Maya the one quality he searched for in vain among his relatives, true compassion. Because when he offered her revenge against them, she hesitated, not out of fear, but because her vision was larger than simple payback. I don't just want to see them lose. Maya had once told him quietly during their late-night talks. I want them to understand what they did, Maya had once told Eduardo, and that was a choice that sealed the Almeida Empire's fate. He left it not to someone seeking revenge, but to someone who believed real power wasn't in humiliating others, but in changing them. Ricardo stormed toward her, jabbing his finger like a weapon. This is ridiculous. I'll fight this one in every court in the country. 2 security guards appeared at the sides of the room. Garcia had prepared for this. Maya stayed calm. What right, Mr. Ricardo? The right to be born in Almeida? Because from what I've seen, the only right you've mastered is the right to humiliate people you think are beneath you. Dr. Luisa quietly opened her briefcase and pulled out a tablet. Eduardo knew this moment would be difficult, she said. That's why he prepared something special. An image of a crowded slum filled the screen. Do you recognize this place? Luisa asked. Christina scoffed. Why would we know some slum? Because your family owned it, Luisa replied evenly. Or rather, did. Eduardo's grandfather bought this land 70 years ago after forcing out 200 families to build the first Almeida shopping mall. And over the decades, more properties were taken in similar ways. All those lands listed in Appendix A, they're not mansions or luxury towers. They're stolen plots in poor communities. Victor hissed. And what does that have to do with this? Maya's lips curved into a calm smile. It's simple. Those properties now belong to me, and I've already signed the transfer papers, giving them back to families who live there, free of charge. The room exploded. Ricardo kicked over a chair. Patricia burst into tears. You don't understand. Maya continued firmly. I don't want your money. I want justice. And justice means returning what was taken. Garcia cleared his throat. There's more. The transfer of company shares to Maya has already been registered. Her first official act as majority shareholder was approving compensation for all employees unfairly dismissed in the past 10 years. That will ruin the company. Ricardo shouted, his face red with rage. Years of work destroyed by childish revenge. It's not revenge, Maya replied steadily. It's reparation. There's a difference. Luisa switched on the television. A live news broadcast appeared. Dozens of former employees being rehired, others receiving severance checks, some crying with joy. This is happening right now, Luisa explained. We timed it to begin during this meeting. You've destroyed us, Christina whispered, her face twisted with anger. Maya stood and walked to the window. No, Mrs. Christina. The Almeida Empire isn't being destroyed. It's being transformed. The market value may dip for a few months, but it will recover. The difference is that now profits will be shared fairly. Ricardo sneered. You don't have the experience to run a corporation this size. In less than a year, you'll come crawling back. You're right, Maya said simply. I don't have experience. That's why I won't run it alone. At Garcia's signal, the doors opened. 5 people walked in, 3 women and 2 men, all in plain work clothes. Meet the new board of Almeida Incorporated, Maya announced. Former employees your father fired for trying to form a union. People with decades of knowledge and ideas you ignored because they came from below. A gray-haired man stepped forward. Hello, Ricardo. Remember me? Carlos Mendez. I spent 25 years in the finance department before I was fired for suggesting profit sharing for employees. This is insane. Victor shouted. You can't hand the company to these nobodies. Dr. Luisa smiled faintly. It's already done. The documents were signed before you even arrived today. You'll keep your minority shares. You'll still get dividends and attend meetings. But the days of absolute control are over. Ricardo collapsed into a chair, his face ashen. My father would never have done this. Your father did, Maya said softly, because in the end he finally understood true legacy isn't measured in money, but in the lives we change. Patricia leapt to her feet, furious. This is fraud. I'll expose you to the press. Maya glanced at Garcia, who tapped the screen again. A video appeared. Patricia, drunk, making racist jokes about waiters. I have hours of this kind of footage, Maya said calmly. Every one of you caught in private, showing who you really are when you think no one important is watching. Victor, once so arrogant, now looked 10 years older. "What do you even want from us?" he asked, his voice hollow. "I want you to learn," Maya answered, "to finally know what it feels like to have no power, to be judged not by your worth, but by the color of your skin or the size of your paycheck." Carlos Mendez stepped forward. "We're not here to destroy this company, but to rebuild it. We were brought back not for revenge, but for our skills you never valued." Luisa handed folders to each Almeida. "These are your options. You can fight the will. We have lawyers prepared for years of court battles. Or you can accept a peaceful transition." "What kind of transition?" Ricardo asked quietly, his arrogance gone. "You keep your homes and a monthly income," Garcia explained. "In return, you must take part in a social awareness program. Volunteer work in the communities your family exploited, diversity and inclusion courses, a full year living with a different perspective." "And if we refuse?" Christina asked, though her voice already carried defeat. Maya stepped forward, her eyes meeting Christina's, not with anger, but with firm resolve. "If you refuse, that's your choice. There's no punishment, only consequences. The videos will go public. The lawsuits will move forward. And your names will forever be tied to the history of exploitation Eduardo wanted to end." A heavy silence filled the room. One by one, the Almeida family realized they weren't just facing a teenager, but something much bigger. Ricardo, still clinging to pride, muttered, "This won't work. You're just a girl. This empire will collapse in your hands." Maya smiled softly, almost with pity. "You still don't see it. This empire was never truly yours, and it's not mine now. It belongs to every worker who built it, brick by brick, day after day." She turned to the window, watching the city beyond, a world forever changed by what had happened in that room. What the Almeidas didn't understand yet was that this wasn't about revenge. Maya was igniting a quiet revolution, one that would spread far beyond them, into institutions that had repeated the same injustices for generations. And while the powerful trembled, something new began to grow among the overlooked. Hope. Not false hope from empty promises, but real hope built on action. Hope that gave power to those who had always been invisible. 6 months later, the headquarters of Almeida Incorporos, once a symbol of elitism, had transformed. On the ground floor now stood a community center where young people from poor neighborhoods received free lessons in entrepreneurship, technology, and civil rights. Maya walked the halls, greeting employees by name, a habit Eduardo had wanted, but his family never adopted. The walls that once displayed costly European art now showcase paintings by local marginalized artists. "Profits are up 12% this quarter," reported Carlos Mendez, now chief financial officer. "The profit-sharing plan with workers has been a huge success. Productivity is at record levels. And the housing project on the old estates." Maya asked, 300 families already have deeds," replied Dr. Luisa, who oversaw the social programs. "The worker cooperatives will launch next month." What shocked outsiders most was how easily Maya moved in the corporate world. At just 17, still finishing high school, she gave 4 hours a day to the company. She left daily operations to the board but kept the long-term vision under her control. The rest of her time she divided between her studies, paid for by a full scholarship from her own foundation, and caring for her mother, Dona Celeste, who was finally getting proper medical care. Across town, Ricardo sat at a cafe, staring at a billboard for the company. The slogan, "Building a Fairer Future," stretched across a photo of Maya with the new diverse board of directors. His expensive suits were gone, replaced with plain clothes. His luxury car had been sold to cover debts. Ricardo alone had refused Maya's offer, too proud to accept the awareness program. He fought her in court and lost every case. Eduardo's videos had destroyed his reputation. His phone buzzed. A job posting for an administrative assistant under the company's reintegration program. He had fallen so low he was now considering working for the business he once believed was his birthright. On the same street, Patricia carried books for an anti-racism course. After her humiliating attack on Maya went viral and ended her career as an influencer, she was the first to accept the program. "Ricardo," she said gently. He looked up, ashamed. "The program isn't as bad as you think," she continued. Honestly, it's changed me. Maya doesn't want to destroy us. She wants us to learn. Ricardo couldn't hold back the tears any longer. At company headquarters, Maya led a meeting with international investors curious about her socially responsible business model. Reporters waited in the lobby to cover what had become a global success story, even studied at universities. "I don't understand," said one French investor. "Why not crush that family completely? They treated you terribly." Maya smiled calmly. "Because real change doesn't come from punishment. It comes from understanding." They needed to see the world outside their privilege. Some have started to learn. As for Ricardo, she paused. "Sometimes people need to hit rock bottom before they can look up. Just today I heard he's considering the reintegration program." What no one knew was that Maya's true plan had never been revenge. When Eduardo gave her full control, inviting her to punish his family, she had hesitated. "I don't want a world where power just changes hands so others can oppress," she had told him. "I want to change the system itself." In his final days, Eduardo realized he had not only found an heir to his wealth, but to the values he had once abandoned, values his own family never lived by. 1 year later, Maya opened the Eduardo Almeida Institute for Social Equity. In the audience sat scholarship students, new employees, and even Christina, Victor, and Ricardo, awkward in his intern uniform, but present. "Prejudice isn't defeated just by exposing it," Maya told the crowd. "It's defeated when we change the structures that allow it, and when we give people a chance to see beyond their bubbles." From the front row, Dona Celeste watched proudly, her cancer in remission, her daughter having turned humiliation into revolution. No one could have guessed, when Maya first walked into that room, that the once humiliated teenager wasn't simply inheriting a company. She was starting a movement, one that, piece by piece, would redefine power and privilege in society. If this story touched you and showed that real transformation comes not from revenge, but from reimagining entire systems, make sure to subscribe for more stories that prove. The greatest revolutions often begin when someone underestimated chooses to answer humiliation not with hate, but with vision.